Welcome to Solotment, episode 1, and today we're going to talk about potatoes. Right, this is eldest son Harry. He's just about to start digging. Is that right, Harry? No, okay. Right, we're on to potato gardening. Right, thing to know about potatoes is they call them seeds. Seeds, potatoes, they're not like a seed like we might call a seed, like an orange pip seed or whatever. That's a seed, potato, okay? Now there's millions of different types of potatoes, and I'm not going to bore you with the different ones and what they do, because when you go to the shop or the garden centre or wherever, it'll have a rack of potatoes up, and it'll have, these are great for boiling, these are great for frying, these are great for salad potatoes, whatever. So just make the decision there, and then I change it every year. The only one that's constant for me is Desiree. They're a red-skinned potato, you can see that. They're very resistant to problems. So that's thing. So potatoes are split into 3 categories: first early, second early, and main crop. Now potatoes, basically they all grow at the same rate, but the main crop is left in longer. But there are certain varieties that do mature quicker. Okay, so I've got a nice selection here today. You can see me plot here. I've decided this quite long plot. It's about 40 foot long. Right, and what I tend to do is I put a potato in every foot. So my foot there, see me crocks? Okay, that's about 12 inches long, I reckon. Although over the years I have lied about what 12 inches looks like. Anyway, that's the plot. So we're gonna quickly dig along here, loosen the soil so the potato's got the best chance of putting its roots down, and then we're gonna position the potato on top, check we've got all nice even spacings, and then from there we'll put them into the ground. So that's me seed potato. You'll see there's some little shoots sticking out. That's really quite important. That's the start of the growing, if you like. These are going to go into the ground, and that will ultimately become the shoot, and then what happens is lots of other little potatoes will kind of branch off. So that's probably going to create something like 8 to 10 potatoes, about so big. Now you will hear me talk about this a couple of times during the course of this sort of block or scheme, whatever we're going to call it. 3 things in gardening: is it achievable, i.e. can your climate allow it? Have you got the time to look after it? Because this is a massive one. If you're going to put something into the ground that requires a lot of watering, but you're not going to be able to get down every day, then stay away from certain things, which we'll talk about. This is the absolute must, I believe, for every single gardener, because it gives you so much back. So achievable, you can put it in pretty rubbish ground and you're going to get a crop from it. In fact, potato gardeners, gardeners often use the potato as the first in any soil space to get the soil broken up and things like that. It's fairly pest resistant because it lives underneath the ground. You've got to put slug traps in, which are basically beer in glass, can you believe? And what happens is the slugs don't attack the crop itself. They decide to do what any sensible person would do, is to go and get a drink of beer. But then they climb in and then they drown in beer, which is probably not the worst way to die. And then it's got to be achievable in terms of infrastructure as well. So you can't just, you can't just plant your whole garden with potatoes unless you absolutely love them, in which case that's fine. Okay, right, the next thing is profitability. Okay, now I don't mean profit from a he's a rich man point of view. What I mean profitability in terms of how much you're going to spend and how much it's going to give back. And I'm going to use the example of carrots. Now I'll mention them a few times during this, but they're not my best friend. These are very profitable because I've put in 40 seed potatoes here at the garden centre. That's costing me about £2.70. I go to a place where it's like a pick and mix scenario, and you can choose different ones. But basically that one potato is probably costing, I don't know, maybe 5 pence, right? And it's going to give me about 8 back. To put this in the context of a family, maybe an adult and 2 kids probably goes through a bag of potatoes a week, i.e. a 1 kilogram bag, which is probably going to cost £1 to £2, 1 to 1.50, depending on the time of the year. The third thing that I'm going to talk about is fun factor. this is a massive one when you're an allotment gardener, really important, okay? Now, there's nothing I like more than getting Harry and Cuthbert involved. There's Cuthbert. Oh dear, there he is. Now, Harry and Cuthbert, basically, I bring them to the garden, but I never say garden. I garden, and they're like gravitate towards it. So I don't say, boys, you must dig this bed or you must plant this. I just start doing it, and they naturally sort of like gravitate to it. So birds of a feather flock together, as they say. But fun factor, massive, absolutely massive. Because when the day comes, when you first put that spade into the ground and you turn the soil over, it's going to give you some really big potatoes which can go basically straight into the pan. Now these are going in today, and our first one, which are going to be at the far end of the bed, they're our first earlies, okay? So for that, we're looking at Lady, Crystal and Javelin, okay, 2 makes that I've grown before successfully in this area. They're the first ones out the ground, the new potatoes. In the middle of the bed, you're looking at Charlotte potatoes, absolutely stunning. Again, very good for this time of year in this part of the country. And then my last ones, I've not grown them before, recommended by a fellow gardener, Mr. Stuart Morton. Pink apple fir, he says they're a very waxy, interesting potato. And then my absolute trusty favourite is Desiree, right, I've mentioned that before. Now what I've done is, as you can see, I've laid them out on the wall. Many gardeners would think that this is too close, however, I go off results. This is how close I've put them in recent years, and I get a stack. And to put it in context, last year I did exactly the same cycle. Quite a dry year last year, but I kept watering the plants. I was still eating potatoes right up till the start of December from my garden. So as of 6 weeks from now, which is basically sort of June, July, August, September, October, November, December, 6 months worth of potatoes off what we're going to do today. Okay, so that's what I mean by profitable. I've mentioned already how of a safe bet potatoes are. As you can see, I've got all my potatoes spaced out along here. This has been dug over. At the start of the season, I put muck in. I did a little bit of mucking also at the end of last year, so whatever came out of here last year, muck went straight in, so it rotted down during the winter. And I personally like to get manure onto the top. It's got to be well rotted, so don't get horse poo and stick it straight on the top. It's going to give you bad results. You've got to have rotted down manure. We will be talking about that in a separate episode. There's 2 things you need to know, right, if you're going to grow these tatties well. We've mentioned slugs. There's going to be a beer trap that's going to go in the ground. It's going to go beer into that. That's going to take care of the slug pest. The other thing that you will hear a word associated with potatoes is blight, okay? Now blight is this sort of horrible thing that just basically wrecks the potato. When you buy a seed potato, do not just buy a bag of potatoes from the supermarket and put them in the ground, because they're not blight resistant, okay? Now, I'm not an absolute authority on this matter, but my friend Mr. Jed Lawson, who's a guitar player in the band, told me that there's a blight line runs through the middle of Scotland. And if you buy seed potatoes that are produced from north of the blight line, they are blight resistant. Okay, you will have heard about the Irish having blight famines in years gone by, in centuries have gone. And the reason for that is because they used to get last year's potatoes and put them straight back in the ground, and that's why blight continued. So the potatoes just failed year after year once the blight set in, and that's blight. Right, are we taking the beer walk either new? Right, this is the dog Sandy. He's often at the allotment with me. There's a couple of dogs around here. Jet's a black thing. I think it's been put in the kennel for being too naughty. It's got a very naughty owner. And then, and the other one, Didgeridoo over there, he's 16 years old, he's a lurcher. Interestingly, the word lurcher means Romany word lure, meaning thief, and chur means mongrel, so it's thieving mongrel, historically used by the poacher, apparently. Anyway, back to the tatties in question. 2 things that affect the success of your crop is slugs and getting rid of them. Use your beer traps. All you need is a plastic pot of water. You plug it into the ground, you'll see about that in a minute, and then you put beer in it, okay? The next thing is you must get blight resistant potatoes. If you buy them from a proper shop, they will be from north of the blight line. Now I'm reliably told from Jed Lawson, who's a guitar player in my band, that a blight resistant potato, the blight line runs through the middle of Scotland, and any seed potatoes that are sold in garden centres come from north of this line. So you cannot get a potato out of a bag at a supermarket and put it in the ground. It will grow, but potentially it'll have blight. So that's just something to think about. Me spacings are ready now. You can see we've done 1.5 bricks all the way up. Got young Harry starting to dig the soil at the top there. And we're at the point now where we need to get these potatoes into the ground. It's at this point in the proceedings we're going to have to enlist my team of hard grafters. Say hello to the camera, Harry.
Hello.
Right, and this is Cuthbert. A little bit mental. Right, so Cuthbert, who was going to be the dibber?
Me.
Okay, dibber, that's the tool in question.
Yes.
Okay, you can use an umbrella handle, a piece of wood, anything kind of cucumber shaped that you've got lying around the house would be suitable.
What, like a cucumber?
Yeah. Anyway, basically what you do is you're going to dib a hole. The technical word is dib, and that's that deep into the ground. You'll notice that I'm making that movement, which makes it like a cone shape, and then the potato in question drops into the hole. Okay, right. Okay. Now just notice Cuthbert there picking off the chits off the potato. That's something we don't want to do, Cuthbert. Okay, because we need those. All right, we actually need those. You monkey. Right. Right. Next dibber. Whilst that's happening, I'm going to be flying along, disturbing the soil, make sure that it's really nice and easy for the potatoes to get growing. It hasn't been dug over for quite some time now, probably about 2 months, so I'm going ahead of the boys to loosen the soil and make it ready, and then they're basically following behind me. Obviously if I was by myself I'd be digging, dibbing and planting. Make sure you get that nice and deep, boys. That's good. Now there's going to be something else that's going to be happening called earthing up. Okay, earthing up occurs as the shoots start to come out the ground. You'll see obviously green stem coming out the ground. Right, we're continuing our way down. That's it. Right, that's it. Right, keep going, boys, because we're on the camera here. We're against the clock, as they say.
As they say.
I'll lift the duck out. I don't actually know where this duck arrived from. It just appeared one day. Could have been a garden gnome, I suppose.
Daddy?
Yeah.
I do know who stole this.
Are we good to go? Right, so here we've got one dibber and one planter working behind me. That needs to go a bit deeper. Deeper, that's it. Swing it round and then drop that potato right into the bottom. Good, very good. Yeah, maybe go a touch deeper actually, because you don't want it, so that's all right. Just go a little bit deeper, lads, if you can. You'll have to go deeper and make sure you go central, because we've got to heat the soil up around the stem as the stem comes out, and that protects the potato from frost. Still at this time of year you can get really cold nights down to 0, 1. If you do get that, the potatoes will not die in the ground, but the stems will certainly wilt and die and come back, of course. If you've got rocky soil, don't panic too much. A lot of people believe that rocky soil is a really, really good thing. I don't particularly like rocks in my soil. I clear them out.
Daddy?
Yep.
I think this is a baby one.
Yeah.
Because it looks like a baby.
Okay. Can we get those ones a little bit deeper if possible?
Yeah, but that's the deepest one.
Okay. All right.
Oh.
Of all the jobs we do in the garden this year, this will be the most productive job. It will give us the highest yield of food. If we didn't have supermarkets and we were surviving on this food, I'll probably be growing more of this stuff. The other fantastic thing about potatoes is they don't take a whole lot of weeding, because the process of them growing, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up sort of earthing the soil up like so. So you can't see it today, it's going to be about 3 weeks from now. You're going to have a stem coming out there, the potatoes are going to be right underneath. But because you're constantly disturbing the soil, you don't really have a weed issue, which is a real treat. I'm also a fan of putting flowers in around the bed. So I like to get the potatoes in the ground, and I put some nice bedding flowers around the outside. I just think it makes it look nice. Boys working hard there. They're going deep enough, boys? Good, good. The deeper the better. Make sure you go central though. You can be right in central, right? Centre, fully centre. Okay, otherwise we can't earth up properly. So what I'm just saying to the boys there is that we need to try to get the potato into the centre of the growing area, because the earth is to be heaped up evenly on either side of the potato. Okay, now I'll hit a rock there, so rather than go through the chill getting it out, I'm just going to move my spade 3 inches to the left, because at the end of the day we need the job doing, and we need to get up to the black horse for a few cheeky ones. How's it going down there? You going nice and central? Can you move that one across a little bit, get it centre? I've been growing now 15 years. This is normally a cycle is 3 or 4 years for gardening. I'll explain about crop rotations in a completely different session. But this soil is good soil. It's had brassicas, salads and legumes, root vegetables. It's had all the different crops growing in rotation in it, so it's very, very good soil. By the time we pull all these potatoes out of the ground, there's probably going to be 2 old-fashioned sacks of potatoes in terms of volume. If you haven't got a bed like this, you can grow it in buckets as well. Barrels, sort of half barrels, you can actually grow it in sort of sacks with soil in. Any container will do really. You have to be able to let the water out though. That's absolutely essential.
So would that mean if you were growing it in a bucket, making sure that the bucket had holes in it?
Yeah, just in the bottom, yeah. I've not done it before, but there's loads of people who do it. I've even heard people growing them in tyres, you know, tyres stacked up, quite a nice idea. I'm not a fan of seeing things like that lying around the allotment. But you'll hear me mention this quite a few times during the course of these sessions, but I call the spirit of the allotment, which is about recycling and reusing and making use of the resources that you have around you. So where we are now, there's a beck at the bottom, and if we need to build a wall, we normally sort of get bits of stone out the beck and things like that. Paths wise as well, we've always got little bits of flat stone and lots of red brick and things like that, which have ended up somehow in the beck. The water has a nice effect on the stone and the brick, so actually makes for a very attractive end product. But the spirit of the allotment, I've talked about it on and off, and it's about the sort of context of having an allotment and what an allotment means, because really an allotment is not about saving money particularly. Yes, you save a lot with the price of veg, something about eating the veg that you've grown, and for me, moreover, giving them veg that I know where it's come from. And at this time in the century and the political climate, and there's a lot of sort of Brexit stuff going on and sort of crazy Trump behaviour, it just feels right to be self-sustainable. I don't make a massive.
This one's got legs.
Yeah, it does. But you plant it so that that's going upwards, yeah?
Yeah.
That's all right? So the shoot's going upwards towards the sky. That's it. Make sure that's it. Yeah, so that's about it really. Might give you a little guided tour right at the end to see what else is in store. I want to look forward to what's next. I'm probably going to do these broadcasts about once, just a little bit to this direction, boys. It's not central enough.
Dada.
I'm gonna do these broadcasts if I can once every sort of 7 to 10 days. So across the 4-month period, you're gonna see it go from its barren state at the moment, which is basically just empty soil, and it's gonna look like the Garden of Eden. And believe me when I tell you that, it will look like that, because not only do we go crazy on getting the veg in. Wait, stop! Come off the bed. Don't run, because you're gonna squash the little babies. Okay, that's Cuthbert, he's a very impulsive child. Anyway, it'll end up being absolutely rammed full of vegetables, and this year more than any year before, I'm going to max up and go to town on flowers as well, because I'm going to have a few parties this year and we want the place looking really nice. So we'll have one last wander around the garden so you can see where we're going next. But we've planted potatoes today. There's one last thing to do, which we are going to do quickly, and that's just to put the defences in the slug traps. So what you'll see me doing here, what you'll see me doing here is I'm putting plastic jars into the ground. I don't use glass, obviously, for obvious reasons, but these little fellas, plant them alternately, and it's very, very hard to believe this, very hard indeed, but tomorrow morning when I come down here and I check in these little tubs, right, there will be slugs, lots of them, in these things. Now, in an ideal world, this would be done in about March, February, because what you're doing is you're killing the mums and dads. Sounds a little bit cruel, but you're getting rid of the generals in the garden, if you like. Yep. Okay, in a minute, yeah. Right, so what's going to happen is the slugs will literally commit harry-carry by going in here, and I get my slops from my local pub, which I like to support as often as possible. This particular set of slops came from the Royal Oak in Port St. Colliery, which is one of my favourite pubs, if not my favourite pub.
And that's coming from a man who's got a wide experience of pubs.
Publican's son of 5 generations or 4 generations, or whatever it is.
You cannot stand the smell of it.
So the sugary smell attracts the slugs.
Daddy? Daddy? Oh.
And a bit of rain, a bit of daily watering, and again you don't need to go crazy on the watering actually, because the beauty of the potato is it's so self-sufficient. It really knows how to look after itself. We'll be eating these in 6 weeks from now. First ones. Excuse me, young Harry.
Harry, the butcher is so sick. Don't let me die, Harry.
Right, belt and brace everything in the garden. There's always something trying to get your stuff. So I've got the slug trap stitch in, which will take care of the worms, but I'll also just put a smattering of slug pellets in onto the surface, like so. That's the potatoes in now. Next in a garden, it's normally onions, and we'll be having a look at where we're going. Sorry, did you by the way, just been drinking the beer? Taste that with that. go.
So Sol, could you show us the pellets that you're using and what they are?
Yep, I get these from the local garden centre. Doff Slug Killer. I use them every year and they work. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Right. And the last thing we're doing then is we're just sending a little bit of water into the soil to get the moisture started, start the germination process. In the village, believe it or not, we've actually had a duck race, about 300 or 400 ducks going down the river. All the village attended. A good day was had by all, but it's the first decent bit of sunshine we've had this year. So we're very, very lucky to get underway. It's fallen perfectly in terms of timing. And I now declare the growing season officially underway. So this is the end of the first session. We talked about a simple thing of how to plant your potatoes. The volume and quantity and variety that you choose depends on you. Grow what you enjoy eating. Don't grow something just because. Pick what you like to eat and think how you're going to achieve that. When I started this garden, and I'll show you some photos on another occasion, but the beds were just like so. There was just a couple of big beds, a couple of small ones. Originally I made the beds out of timber, but the timber basically rotted after 3 years. At that point I decided that if I was going to be in it for the long haul, which I am, and I decided at that point I was going to do more permanent things, so I decided to red brick it. But you, as the coming on board person at this moment in time, need to decide, is this just a fad for 1 year? If so, get some tomato plants, put a couple of tomatoes in, grow a bit of parsley, a couple of leeks maybe, and be happy with that. However, if you decide you want to try and feed your family, or you want to make something much more significant in terms of a growing statement, then start thinking about infrastructure. I normally work on infrastructure such as fencing and paths and beds. I do that all in the winter, so that when it gets to the actual growing season itself, I'm concentrating on keeping the weeds down and keeping everything watered, because that's a really big task. So here's my plan for this year. You can see it's rough and ready. It goes cap in hand with all of the previous years, as you can see. I'm quite a sort of OCD type of person. I like detail, I like alignment, I like tidiness. You'll see that as time wears on. Or CDO as I like to call it. I like the letters in the right order. And you need to understand rotations. This is really important. You're going to put a crop in this year and it's going to be followed by something else, and there's a cycle which I'll talk to you about in another session. But this book is a simple allotment book, and any decent allotment book should have a simple classification of what vegetables fall into which categories. So once you grow a root vegetable like potatoes that we've grown in that bed, next year you must put legumes and salad in that bed, which means runner beans, lettuce, peas, onions, things like that. If you don't follow this rotation, then you're going to be in for various different kinds of diseases in both the soil and the crop itself. Once the legumes and salads have been in, that bed must then become a brassica in the third year. So it's a 3-year cycle. Any allotment book worth its while will make reference to rotations. You don't need to spend loads of money. Go to a library. There's loads of great books in the library actually, but if you open a book about allotments and it hasn't got crop rotation in it, put it straight down and get rid of it, because it's not worth it. That's the plan. These beds are all vacant right now. The next thing that I'll be doing is I'll be putting in bean poles. I'll be starting to think about broad bean supports, things like that. So on our next little meeting, that's what we're going to be doing. Thank you. Okay, I hope you've engaged and enjoyed my information today. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to find out about when my sessions are coming. Click on the button and that'll tell you when the next video is live. And also, please, if you would leave any comments below, I'll be able to answer them comments and add a few answers into the following videos. Okay, goodbye.